today, episode 10.
Episode
Come a
10, the
long
Big
way.
10.
So
Yes.
for today's episode, we've decided to do some Q&A. We've polled some of our friends and family for any questions that they may have. And then we also thought of questions to ask not only ourselves, but each other. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so I
Right.
can start with my question first, if you don't mind. Okay, so my first question is what's one thing you're most proudest? And it could be this year or what you've done in the past, you know. But
Okay.
for myself, unless you want to start.
We'll go first.
Okay.
All year.
Okay. So I think the change started 2 years ago. So the one thing I'm most proudest of myself is that I take ownership for everything now. Because before, when I would mess up or when someone would mess up, I would always play the blame game. It's like, oh, you did that. It's because of your fault that this happened. Oh, why didn't you do this? That led me to fail. Oh, you brought down the team. So I was always pointing fingers. I was just giving everyone blame except for myself. And it all changed when I read this one book. It's called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. It's a Navy SEAL. Basically, he says, whatever happens, you got to take ownership for it, extreme ownership. So, for example, if your team fails, they didn't carry through their mission, whatever, or like you didn't complete a project on time, it's nobody's fault except your own. You could have asked for help. You could have asked for the resources. You could have communicated better, like, hey, boss, we needed some help. We need some, we need some manpower. Or if you're the leader, like, hey guys, what do I need? Where are you guys right now? Like, what's the progress? Like, do you guys need some resources? You need more people? I can transfer people over. So everything is your fault. And it doesn't just start and begin with, oh, it's my fault, and that's it. It starts with, yes, it's my fault. I take full ownership. And now here's what we're going to do to fix it and not let that happen again. So the clearest example that I've had for myself is, so I'm in a long distance relationship, right? And it sucks. That's why I thought before, I would always blame my girlfriend. Oh, you don't make time for me. You're always like doing this, so pitiful now that I look back at it. But now I've come to see the light that she's trying her hardest, and like, I'm giving myself problems. I'm the one to blame. Instead of complaining about not having enough time, how about I make time? How about I alter my schedule in order to talk with her more or to do more things with her? Why don't I start sleeping earlier so I can wake up earlier to talk to her? How about I stop messing around on social media or like wasting time watching videos when I could be learning new things, and then teach her and then educate her on different things, make the conversation very lively and such. So ever since I started taking ownership of all my problems, all my faults, I've been so much happier because it's no one's fault. And once I started taking ownership, it's so easy to like take a step back and be like, okay, now it's my fault. How am I going to fix this? What's the solution? Because once you start blaming people, you're looking for all of the excuses, to not take action. That person should have done this. That person should have done that. Instead of looking at yourself and figuring out what you need to do. Because at the end of the day, if you blame other people, you yourself don't get a chance to level up and grow because you're busy making excuses. You're not out here spending time analyzing what you did wrong and trying to find a skill set or trying to improve on an aspect of your life that you made a mistake on or you're weak at. Instead, blaming other people and making excuses just keeps you complacent while everyone around you, is growing and leveling up. So I think that's been the most important thing I've learned. And I know I slipped up every once in a while, but I come to my senses. And then I'm like, okay, stop blaming. You're just emotional. You're just mad. Let's take ownership. It's my fault. And then everything starts to make sense again. Oh, okay, I see why I started yelling at this person. Oh, I see why, this didn't go out as I intended to, because it was my fault. And it always will be my fault.
Mm. Have you ever felt a time where you did take ownership, but you weren't at fault for it? So you knew that it was the other person's fault, you could say.
Right. So
Yeah.
at work, I do manage a few people,
Mhm.
and sometimes they'll mess up, but and then I wasn't there. So even though they messed up and I wasn't there, it's still my fault because who's the one that taught them all the procedures? Who's the one that trained them? Who's the one that hired them? Who's the one that's always around them? That's me. So I didn't do my job. So even though I'm not there, I'm still directly responsible for, everything that they do. And once, like I mentioned, once I took ownership, okay, what do we need to do next? We need to do training in this. I need to start asking for more feedback because I just assumed that they knew what they were gonna do. And we're all human, we're gonna make mistakes. So you can't assume. Um, Once I stopped doing that, I just asked for feedback. Hey, what do you guys need? How can I help you do your job better? What else do we need to do? Do you see any uh, some holes in our department or our program? Because sometimes I'm not there and they are. And by able to get that feedback, I'm able to make a relationship better, build trust, and make the entire department better. So it's always your fault. It's just the easiest thing. When you don't blame anybody else but yourself, the solution is right there and you can start working your way back up.
Yeah, and I find that pretty interesting because there's so many qualities to what a leader is, and taking ownership is definitely one of those that you really have to carry. I mean, I don't want to get too like political and all that, but the current situation of just things happening here with like government and all that, um,
Yes.
they're constantly working in teams, and blaming someone for doing something, saying something, and all that, it's not going to help at all. So, um, yeah, I was just kind of like reflecting on your situation, just like your relationship with your girlfriend, and just like my own experiences working in teams and all that. So, taking ownership is really a characteristic that every leader should have, because you know you just got to find a way to just move forward from all of this, and you know taking time to debrief about our individual
Yes.
self, as well as with your team members whenever you can, because that's the only way you can move forward, is just to point out exactly what you guys need to improve on, what you need to improve on yourself,
Mm-hmm.
in order to help um, yourself grow, as well as your team members, those around you. So yeah, taking ownership is a pretty good characteristic to have.
And if you think about it, like imagine if you're a part of a team where the leader does nothing but blame you and other people. Now what are you gonna think? It's like, oh, when stuff hits the fan, this leader is just gonna blame someone else and never take account for everything, never take accountability. So then you start to not trust this leader. You start to not tell him these things. So you almost kind of like indirectly sabotage the
Yeah.
project just because you don't have this relationship. Because they have proven to you that every time something happens, oh, it's gonna be my fault no matter what.
Mhm.
So that's just key. If you want to build a good relationship, you need to start taking ownership. And when you do start taking ownership, is that going to make you look like a bad leader? No. Like people are going to look like, man, this guy, when stuff hits the fan, like even though I made the mistake, he's taking ownership. He's the one saying, no, it's my fault. Then you start trusting him. Like
Yeah.
when things are getting complicated, I can trust this guy because he's not going to go around pointing fingers, throwing people under the bus. So
Yeah. All right. So for me, it's usually hidden